Hello, and welcome back to the YouTube channel for Time's Ticking. Today we're going to be talking about space watches. That's right, watches that have been sent into outer space. There's quite a rich history behind sort of aeronautics and space flight with wristwatches. So stay tuned with us and we'll be exploring a couple of styles and a couple of brands that have made their way all the way up to even the moon. Before there was one small step for a man and one giant leap for mankind, wristwatches were being tried and tested here in the terrestrial realm. Now, a lot of these tough, dependable wristwatches started to get noticed by larger governments during times of the space race. Russia and America being the primary examples. As a helpful redundancy and measurement tool, a wristwatch could help an aeronaut or astronaut read and calibrate onboard flight instruments. So wristwatch tech was there from the underwater moonwalk tests all the way to the moon itself. Although there's a decent swath of watches that have made it to the moon and back and otherwise out into space, we're going to have a look at just a few standouts through watch history. So follow us into the final frontier. During the space race, Russia was a country of firsts. When it came to sending up the first satellite, the first country to send a living creature up to space, being Laika the dog, for better or for worse. On June 12, 1965, Russia claimed the first spacewalk as well by an astronaut. This astronaut's name was Alexei Leonov. As a result, Russia was the first country to have a worn wristwatch outside of the safety of a spaceship. Mr. Leonov's wristwatch was a Strela, meaning arrow in Russian, watch. The Strela watch featured a mechanical chronograph movement with a continuously ticking second hand. And although the standard dial was black on these watches, some claim that his specific watch actually featured a white dial. This was good for a little bit of customization, considering the risk of his job. The Strela wristwatch was the only watch issued to Russian cosmonauts from 1950 to 1979. As a true rock star of Russian timekeeping, the Strela has stood out as a bona fide space watch both then and now. If we're going to talk about the rock stars of space timekeeping, then we definitely need to talk about the Omega Speedmaster. The Omega Speedmaster is the only official watch of NASA that's issued to its astronauts. This has been the case all the way from the late 1950s until now. The Omega Speedmaster had to pass a gauntlet of extreme environmental testing by NASA in order to be selected as the official watch of the space program. It was no small feat for Omega to set itself apart from other competitors like Rolex and Bulova, among others. The Speedmaster made it through some of the deepest and difficult dives, heat and cold and fog testing that ended up making it America's space program watch. The Speedmaster's original development was for sport and racing, and it started back in 1957. The Omega Speedmaster was the first American spacewalk watch. It was also selected for the most famous manned space mission in human history, the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. Because of Omega's affiliation with the Apollo missions, the Omega Speedmaster was the first wristwatch on the moon. During the Apollo 13 mission, the Omega Speedmaster actually saved lives by helping the astronauts onboard time engine firings that brought them safely back to Earth after onboard explosions nearly left them stranded in space. With a bold history of reliability and durability, NASA, as I mentioned, still officially uses Omega Speedmasters, and a particular model that they're using nowadays is the X33. It's a more contemporary model of the Speedmaster that features both analog and digital timekeeping. Though it's difficult to trace every single watch that has been to space, there are plenty of wristwatches that get worn on and off the clock by astronauts. A few honorable mentions include the Breitling Navitimer, the Bulova Accutron, and from 1985 to nowadays, the Sin brand watches, spelled with 2 N's. The 142 is a particular standout model. One wristwatch in particular is Dave Scott's Bulova Chronograph. That one is also a pretty great example of a wristwatch that went to space and stood up. When Scott's Speedmaster stopped functioning well for him, he actually wore it on the moon. This wristwatch actually recently sold for $1.3 million or somewhere near that, which isn't too bad considering it was a backup watch. Even some of the most reliable and dependable watches didn't have the right stuff for NASA's missions into space or Russia's missions into space. Through tough engineering, a lot of these watch companies have aligned themselves very well with the continued exploration of space. So as time goes on, keep an eye out for other performance chronograph watches, because you never know, your favorite watch just might end up in the stars. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you click the links right here, you'll be directed to more of our videos on wristwatches, a little bit of the history that's involved with them, as well as information about watch repair and maintenance. Thank you so much for joining us here at Time Ticking today. Have a great one.